call this meeting back to order, and we'll open up with the Public Works Operations, Public Works Parks and Cemeteries.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. This is the Public Works budget. Public Works conducts year-round maintenance on the municipality's existing infrastructure and assets, including the roads and right-of-ways, sewers, street lighting, fleet, and facilities. The operating budget, the total operating budget is a little under $3.9 million, which is consistent with previous years. The Public Works operation budget is funded primarily through taxation, with approximately $65,000 generated through other revenue sources. All salaries and benefits for the Public Works Department are budgeted within the Public Works budget. So that would be for the parks and cemeteries budget as well. And other departments. We do a little bit of work for other departments, so then that would be allocated over to their budgets. For the most part, all variances noted in the budget summaries are as a result of how the wages were allocated and charged to the different accounts. Operationally, there are no major changes to any activities. The Public Works capital budget is primarily vehicle and equipment replacements. We are requesting a new utility tractor. This tractor would be slightly larger with a higher PTO horsepower. The current one that pulls the batwing mower is undersized, and we are having issues with the PTO. We had to rebuild it already. With more sidewalks being added, especially along County Road 20, if that goes through, this tractor will be well used in the winter as well. So it'll be a very seasonal tractor. With the extra maintenance that we're doing down at the waterfront. We have 3 tractors that are being used very heavily, so a 4th tractor would be used year-round quite nicely. Administration has also included funds to complete a facility feasibility study. The current Public Works facilities are too small to store all the equipment, especially the larger tandem snow plows. Currently we can't fit them in the garage doors, so we have to take the wing plows off of them, which is quite a bit of work. So if we do have a bad snowstorm, or we have to do any kind of winging or anything like that, to have to put the wings on and off and stuff just to get them into the garage door, it's kind of a nuisance. We also need to install a proper wash bays. Right now the guys are washing outside the front door there. It's not best practice, definitely, and they're standing outside in winter conditions washing down trucks and stuff like that. So we'd like to propose that we do a feasibility study, because I guess whether the question said whether to renovate our existing or look into something new, there's a lot of different factors that would go into that. So we just like to spend a little bit of money on a feasibility study. Approximately 60% of the capital budget is funded through the fleet reserve, and 38% is net from revenue, and the remaining funds are from the sales of existing assets. So if there's any questions on the Public Works budget.
Okay, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ken. I was quite disappointed not to see a sidewalk sweeper on your budget. I was really hoping that this year we would.
Yeah,
Pull your mic up a little bit.
I didn't hear it. I didn't see it, unless I'm looking under the wrong.
It's, yeah, the way it's presented to you in your summaries there. Just get to that page there. We don't, because it's kind of a smaller attachments, we've kind of lumped them all into one category, like other mechanical and equipment purchases. I don't know what page number this is. The very first one there, the 54,000. So a cleaner for the sidewalks is included in that. Yeah, sorry, that's just the way it
You don't have to apologize.
yeah,
I'm
it
more
is,
than
so it
pleased.
is in there.
Okay,
it
that's
is in there.
fantastic.
There's other small attachments for the beach, like a sweeper with a new boardwalk in there. Different smaller attachments that are going to be pretty handy. So they're all kind of lumped into that one line item.
Oh, that's great. I had expected it higher cost than that, so I didn't think it was in there. No, I'm more than pleased with that. That's
Okay.
great. I have two more questions, if I could. I noticed in the marina budget that they are painting the street lights down there, and I was driving through town, stopped at the stoplight the other day, and we really could use some some of the ones where people have put yard sale signs and all the paint's peeled off. Something to consider. I just read this book on all the 13 things to kill your kill your town, and how things look, and not painting is one of them. So it just came to mind, just something to consider. And then I heard Rob say earlier that we do have a person included in the uptown maintenance, because last year, I think you'll recall my complaint about lots of weeds in the uptown. So we'll have a person dedicated for that type of cleanup, maintenance. Okay, all right,
Yes.
that's good. Everything else, I'm fine with. Thank you.
Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Worship. Not that I have any issues with in-kind services, but do you track the cost that we perform these types of services for different events when we do it in kind? Do we have any idea how much that is actually costing us?
A lot. We don't, I guess, track every hour and every dollar that goes into it, because a lot of it, for example, if there's an event at Seacliff, we will spend quite a bit of staff time into weeding and mulching and preparing the site for the event. However, we also benefit from that afterwards too. So it's just because the park will look good afterwards as well. Things where we're setting up fence or delivering fencing for events and stuff like that, we do track that as well, and then we charge that to our special events operating budget. A lot of it is we will charge it back if it's a lot of work. We will charge it back to the event, but I don't have a number that I could say exactly what it is. It's kind of on a per event basis.
I was just curious because I know that in our, like earlier today, we had the in-kind for the Sure Complex was $900 and some. So I think it's fantastic that we're able to provide that service. I just was curious as to see how costly it really was, like to your department, I guess, basically. But it's fine.
Yeah, like I say, we spend a lot of time on special events, but a lot of it, we also see the benefits to it, because it's just maintaining and upkeep of all the parks and facilities and trails and stuff. When we bring barricades or things like that, we don't really track it. Each event might take a couple guys for a day to drop off all this stuff and pick it up. So in the grand scheme, it's not that much extra money. Some of it we will charge it back. It depends on the type of event, I guess.
Councillor Hammond?
Mayor, thank you. And Ken, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for this question, but I'll throw it out there. Maybe you can help me out. I think we miss out on a lot of potential revenue, and I'm thinking about the ball diamonds now with respect to signage and allowing signs to be put up. There's some that could be done on the new building. There's some that could be done on the backstops. There's some that in most towns you go to along the back fence. Am I in the wrong area here?
Well, yes and no. It's a signed bylaw that we operate under. So, yep.
Council might recall, maybe in August, you had approved the RFP for a marketing consultant. That RFP has now gone out, and we'll be getting submissions in January. And those are the kinds of things that we'd be looking at that person to do, to provide us with those opportunities that we can use to increase that revenue, like you suggested. So that'll be coming forward in the new year.
Thank you.
Real quickly for me, when you mentioned putting your snow plows into the sheds and stuff like that, have you seen the most recent post in social media that shows the the road grader going by, and it has a special blade that drops down to block the snow from going into driveways? Mm-hmm. Is that? I know I don't think we use road grader most of the time. It's always the big snow plow on a truck.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
anything like that possible in those situations, or?
I haven't seen that.
You haven't?
Post, so no,
Okay,
no, I haven't seen
I'll have to share it with you then.
Yeah.
It was kind of neat, but it's on a big road grader, and so there's a blade that drops down perpendicular to the blade, I guess, stops the snow from hitting the driveways,
Really?
and then
Interesting.
lifts back up again, and it just continues on piling. It was kind of neat, but
Yeah, that is neat.
yeah. Well, that's too bad. Yeah, you should get one. Anyway, so if there are no other questions on this budget, then we're good. Thank you, sir. And move on to parks and cemeteries.
Okay, thank you. The Parks budget allocates funding to maintain and administer 16 neighborhood and community parks, about 30 kilometers of trails, and 2 outdoor sports fields. The total operations budget is a little over 1.4 million, which is an increase from the 2017 budget, which was around 1.1 million. An additional $218,000 transfer to capital is being requested, which accounts for the majority of the increase. The remaining portion of the requested increase is primarily due to staffing. Additional full-time staff hours are being allocated to the parks from the Public Works budget. Operationally, there are no changes to any activity, so I just want to explain that, I guess, one more time. If anybody has any questions, basically the Public Works budget has all of our, so we have 20 full-time operators and then the part-time operators. Well, laborers, not operators. All that budget sits in the Public Works budget. So then we allocate that out. So it's difficult to predict for the next year exactly how many hours a particular staff is going to work, say in Seacliff Park. So we'll just put a number. If it's more, it'll cause that line item to go over budget in the parks, but that means less hours were spent somewhere else. So at the end of the day, it kind of all washes out. So when you see some variances that are plus or minus in all 3 budgets, it's primarily due to the allocations of the wages and stuff. So I hope that it's clear as mud now. So, okay. The parks operation budget is funded primarily through taxation, with approximately $80,000 generated through other revenue sources, and that would be the reserving the sports fields and stuff like that. So the 2 main capital projects for 2018 are the renovation of the Lloyd Wilkinson Park, which is the one on Alderton, and the design and installation of a new skateboard park. Additional funding is being requested for general improvements at various parks and new amenities at the new baseball field house and the leash-free dog park. And with the new sanitary sewer installed along Point Pelee Drive, we've included funding to connect the Mercia Park to that new sewer. The majority of the funds for capital projects are from taxation. The Rotary Club is donating $10,000 towards the leash-free dog park, and $100,000 will be funded out of the waterfront reserve for additional improvements to the waterfront, including the addition of some cooking equipment in the lower concession at Seacliff. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Questions? Councillor Berbiki?
We're the mayor. Thanks to you, Ken. The first one there, the Lloyd Wilkinson Park, it's not mentioned there, but I'm assuming the only thing I'm looking for in there is soccer nets, goalposts. I don't know if you're going to tear down that old ball diamond in the back or, excuse me. But I'm just looking that, I don't know, I had a couple of guys just interested in making themselves, but, you know, the safety issues and all that too, but there's a lot of people that use that for soccer, and I guess, you know, they would like to see soccer pitches in there because it's still a growing neighborhood with young kids.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. We're seeing a lot of that. We're actually putting some in the Chestnut Park as well, and in the back of Lloyd Wilkinson there, where that baseball cage is right now. We're going to leave that whole grass area open, like not plant any trees, for kind of a mini sports field. So that's a good idea. I'll make a note of that.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Ken, I've got a habitual complainer to me about Mercia Park. He thinks not enough attention is spent to Mercia Park, and I said I'd look for it in the budget to see what's coming. I see that we got piling that's planned for 2019. I'm assuming that's the across the road, the beach wall, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And when I get these complaints, he talks about repainting, just updating in general at Mercia Park. Can you give me a little brief? Have we been repainting it? Has there been any updates done to that in recent memory?
Yes, actually, I've been here for 5 years now, and in that time, we've redone the two picnic shelters. I put in new concrete floors and redone them. The bathroom, we renovated the inside of it and put new sidewalks to the bathroom facility. Basically gutted that building and redid them, put in new fixtures and stalls and painted them and new lighting and everything like that. So we painted the structure, plate structures and stuff like that there. So we have been redoing some of this stuff. Then we'll put it on the sanitary sewer, which I know sometimes the old weeping bed system and stuff like that's always, especially when there's big events there. Because there is actually quite a few with the picnic shelters and the baseball diamonds. There are quite a few events there.
Mr. Neufeld?
Just in further to that, we too hear the habitual complainers about that. And when it's explained the work that we have done there, they don't count that as what they're looking for. And so it's not that we haven't done the work, it's that they don't like the answer. And the answer is, yes, we have done works down there. We've put in, as Ken said, new cement. We've painted the washrooms and updated them, and that's not good enough. So we hear it too, but I'm glad you raised that so that it can at least get into the public sphere.
I'm sorry, I've got the Deputy Mayor first.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ken, I'm happy to see that we're going to hire some seasonal general laborers rather than just quitting the maintenance in parks, et cetera, when the students go back to school. I think that's good on a bunch of fronts. And to Lloyd Wilkinson Park, again, I'm glad that's in the budget. I think it needs a refresh. It's also been fairly dark, so I think that's great. Anyway, just wanted to tell you that. Not that I'm trying to get on your good side or anything, but I just think those are really key things. And even the seasonal general laborers, even for them to set a standard of working, that sometimes when you have all students, there isn't a terribly high standard, if you will, and I think that having somebody else might do that. So for me, I think that's excellent. So I just wanted to tell you those are two things I noticed that I think are great. And I had wondered about the the over expenditure in wages too, but you explained it, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hammond?
Mayor, thank you. And again, to bolster some of the points you brought forward, from Councillor Wilkerson, and I spent a great deal of time down there, Ken, and I can tell you those ball diamonds are pristine. They're worked on, and I know you know this, but to the people that you're talking to, the posts all around the park got painted this past summer. They're there after every weekend of ball, which is every weekend. They pick up all the trash. It's always cleaned up. They do regular maintenance. They're down there twice a week at least on the ball diamonds, grooming those and cutting the grass, besides the other things you already mentioned. So to that person that you're speaking to, tell them that there's a lot of time and money being spent on that park.
Won't make any difference. Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship. Ken, regarding the Leash Freeze Park, first of all, it's a great idea, and I'm glad we've got it. I was just curious. I was talking with somebody from the Rotary Club. Did they donate additional monies other than the $10,000 towards this park?
No, the $10,000 would be for the 2018 year. None of the, nothing in the past. Like this new grant is for 2018. They got it in this 17 year, and then it will be put towards the amenities in the park.
It was just a different figure that they said that, so just curious about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Neufeld?
And further to that point, there has been some misunderstanding or miscommunication, or I would even say an unfair comments made in social media regarding this issue. There has been no donation to date. We are very fortunate that the Rotary Club wants to work with us, and we, as administration, have been speaking with some members of the Rotary Club regarding a donation which will go towards the dog park, but that hasn't come through to council yet because there's been no formal presentation, there's been no formal commitment to bring to council. So in social media, there have been comments about council not being grateful, or members of council not being grateful or recognizing the contributions by the Rotary, and I think it's important that it's clear that council wasn't aware of the discussions that administration had been having because they haven't come to conclusion yet, but we are grateful that the Rotary Club is committing to $10,000 towards the building of the dog park.
I can fill you in later. Really quickly, and going back to the dog park, again, I'm really happy that the Rotary Club's doing this too, and glad that we now know semi-formally that that's happening. But as I mentioned to you in the lunchroom there, Ken, the amount of feedback that Betty and I get in regard to that dog park now that the fencing is up and all the grooming has been done in the back there is just over the top. People are just thrilled with it. So it was money well spent, and I realize that there's going to be ongoing costs to it. But I dare say that if we get into the other question that Councillor Hammond was doing about the ballparks and signage, that we may end up finding sponsors down there as well. I don't know how many signs you want hanging on fence, but that same scenario could happen. Anyway, and I'm super glad that Wilkinson Park is included in there. I know it's going to make a friend of ours extremely happy. And I just wanted to just on the skateboard park, it says funding will permit the design of the new skateboard. Design and build?
Yes,
Okay.
that was a typo on my behalf. I
Okay.
noticed that as well. And yeah, it's the design and build.
Build, okay.
Yeah.
Very
Sorry.
good. Anything else? Excellent. And the last one will be cemeteries then. I didn't mean it like that.
Okay, thank you. The cemetery budget allocates funding to maintain 11 cemetery sites, 3 of which are active, which are Lakeview, Bayview, and Albuna. Public Works staff carry out interments at Lakeview and Bayview cemeteries and cremation interments at Albuna. Full interments at Albuna are done by a contractor. For the operating budget is a little over $100,000, which is an approximate $33,000 increase compared to 2017. The primary reasons for the increase is a transfer to capital of $22,000 and additional staff hours allocated out of the Public Works budget. Operationally, there are no changes, major changes to any activities. In the capital budget, administration is proposing to reconstruct the asphalt driveways in Lakeview Cemetery over the next 4 years. So we've kind of divided up the whole cemetery, the driveways, into 4 phases, basically. So that's why the $22,000 transfer to capital is in the operations budget. So that would fund the first phase in 2018. A lot of the driveways in there are starting to break apart and getting down to gravel, and chunks are falling out and stuff. So that's it's not a big budget, but that's basically about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Ken, are there perpetual fees at all that come in for cemeteries for people that have plots in that 7,600 fees and service revenue?
We do have some that I'm aware of. I could only talk so much about it. I know the other departments handle a lot of the costing for the cemeteries. We kind of just maintain them and do the interments and stuff. But I am aware that there are certain perpetual funds that do come in various forms for maintenance.
Any further questions? All good? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll move on to engineering services, drainage. We did that. We did drainage. So we're engineering, sewers, and transit infrastructure services. Page 65. On tab 8, page 65.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I am on page 65. The engineering budget funds engineering services department, as well as new municipal infrastructure projects in the areas of roads, traffic signals, bridges, sidewalks, streetlights, and active transportation. The engineering budget also funds the maintenance of our traffic signals and streetlights. We have 6 staff, including the manager, 3 project managers, the engineering technologist, and an administrative assistant. Throughout the year, we consult with all the local utility companies regarding their construction projects, and we manage those. And we also discuss with them their location within the road allowance, and we approve their alignments. A significant part of our work is consultation and review of all new development in Leamington, such as subdivisions, commercial institutional establishments, and greenhouses, and how they interact and use existing infrastructure like drains, sewers, and roads. The operating segment is estimated to be just over $1.4 million for wages, maintenance, and operation costs that include electricity for streetlights and traffic signals, and this is typically funded from taxation. The 2018 capital segment is estimated to be approximately $7.8 million. The revenue to fund engineering projects comes from a number of sources, like the federal gas tax, which is approximately $1.4 million, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, formula-based, and this year we're getting just over $900,000 from the OSIF formula-based funding program. Various funding programs like the Small Communities Fund and the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund also contribute to this. And the taxation portion is just over $1.5 million. In the operating budget on page 66, you'll see under professional services, in that line item, the municipality initiated, you may recall this, the municipality initiated the North Leamington Stormwater Master Drainage Study late in 2017 at an estimated cost of $150,000. And that's going to be funded from engineering reserve and paid back through a greenhouse development fee of $1,000 per growing acre on greenhouse developments within the Silver, Reed, or the Big Creek municipal drainage boundaries. So moving on to the individual capital projects. We have the Seacliff Drive bike lanes, the construction of paved bike lanes and new curbing along County Road 20 between Shirk Street and County Road 31. This budget request is for the Leamington share, or 60% of segments 11A and 11C. So what does that mean? The segment of County Road 20 between Shirk Street and County Road 31 was divided into 3 segments. So Leamington is sharing the outside segments, closest to Leamington and closest to the urban area and closest to County Road 31 with the county, and the segment in the middle, 11B, is 100% paid for under the under the county budget. And again, this project is part of the CWATS program. The work is planned to be a county initiative, which means they'll have care and control of the project, and we'll be a funding partner. Our share of the cost will be funded partly from federal gas tax and the remainder from taxation. We have our annual road resurfacing program. Typically, we tender for a number of specialized contracts for road rehabilitation through tar and chip surfaces or milling and paving, and this year is intended to be funded from the OSIF annual formula-based funding program. We did intend to do a spring road review to look at the road condition in the spring, just to solidify which roads we'd like to look at. And I'd like to bring that back for discussion. I am thinking about roads like Hickson Side Road, Road 12, but again, I'd like to bring some suggestions back to council after we have a look at the roads in the spring. We also have our sidewalk program. It's interesting to note that we are in the middle of a sidewalk strategy plan. We'll be presenting the findings of that to council soon, early in 2018, and following that discussion, we'll talk about which segments of sidewalk council would like to move forward with. And that is funded from taxation. We also have set aside or requested money, for LED streetlight conversions. So in 2017, we completed an inventory of all the decorative lighting in town. We're confident now that we know how to retrofit all of the lighting that we have. But the budget we've requested will cover only a portion of the replacement, and we'd likely have to request some in the future. Funding for this is through the federal gas tax program. I'd like to report that we have 3 gravel roads left in Leamington. Killdeer, we have 2 segments of County Road, or Mercy Road 21, and a small segment of Mercy Road B just west of Mercy Road 12. This year's segment will be a segment of Mercy Road 21, and we're planning on funding that through the OSIF annual formula-based program, and partly from taxation. Another important project that's already underway with utility relocations is the Erie South, Conover, Stewart, and Forest project. And you'll see this mentioned in the engineering budget, the sewer budget, and the water budget, and you'll see that with a number of projects. This project is funded partially through the Small Communities Fund, and they are funding 50% up to $2 million. We also have a portion that's funded from the federal gas tax program and taxation. We do expect now that the total project cost would be approximately $5.7 million. We're looking at having this project tender ready in the new year and a contract awarded shortly thereafter, and we expect construction to begin in the spring. The traffic signal at Oak and Weigel, that project was approved in the 2017 budget, but due to some conflicts with the Union Gas project that was ongoing in the area, it was pushed into the 2018 budget. But we do expect that work to be the first project that our contractor does in the spring of 2018. We also have a continuation of the courtesy crossing retrofits and PXO project that we awarded to Ron Field and Son later in 2017. You may have seen some of the bike lane painting and some signposts up around town. That's part of the project, and that will continue through the winter. He can still do sign posts and sign bases and some things during the winter, but that project will continue into 2018. Another important project that we have is the Uptown Revitalization. A consulting contract was awarded in 2017. They'll continue to work towards finalizing the plan through the early parts of 2018. The purpose, again, of the study was to identify design guidelines, criteria, ministry approvals, community needs, and the desired outcomes to positively impact the uptown area. This project is funded from reserves, and the consultant is actively working on the project through some stakeholder meetings that I'm sure you've participated in. He's completed his surveys. I think he has some online surveys. And we intend to have a second open house in January of 2018 to talk about some more options and present some findings to council. Part of that project is drilling down into the reconstruction and revitalization of Mill Street. You'll see that line item in the budget also. So that, again, is within the Uptown Revitalization Plan, but it also includes for sewer separation, and it will go hand in hand with our findings of the Uptown Revitalization. We're continuing working on waterfront revitalization, where a master planning exercise will continue to identify, again, things like design guidelines, criteria, ministry approvals, community needs, desired outcomes. Just for council's information, we've already done some work at the dock. We've had it inspected, and we've made some structural repairs to the dock, cost shared by the Ministry of Transportation. Our consultant's already been looking at and making plans and suggestions and thinking about things like vehicle traffic, pedestrian cycling, and linkages between the marina, the dock, and Seacliff Park. They're looking at lighting ideas, landscaping ideas, and just the general layout of the waterfront. You'll also see a line item for another bridge. This one is for design of bridge number 53, which is located at the intersection of Mercy Road 19 and Mercy Road C. We've included a line item for an additional vehicle. Engineering has a limited number of vehicles. We have a van and 2 Rangers that we inherited from the Public Works and from Corporate Services and Building Services. So we have, we're looking at, and number 4 really needs to be taken off the road. So we're looking at having 4 vehicles for 5 field staff. The last project I just wanted to mention was another CWATS program. It's a functional design assignment. So in order to proceed with bike trails and lanes through the CWATS funding program along Talbot Street East, Talbot Street West, and County Road 33 to Peely Drive, or along Point Peely to Point Peely, Leamington must complete and submit a functional design report to the CWATS committee. So we'll complete the reports in 2018 for construction in 2019. This project is funded from federal gas tax and the CWATS program.
All set? Have you got enough to do, or? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Alan, a couple of months ago, we had a report come to us regarding Erie Street, taking that down from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes from Oak to Melrose. Is that in the 2018 project list here somewhere?
Yes, that's included in the Courtesy Crossing PXO AT studies. That's the project that was awarded to Ron Field and Son. They worked away at it this year, tried to get as much done as they can. The one thing that's inhibiting us at the moment is our locating service. The locating companies, the company that we have to do Bell, Gas, and Hydro seem to be taking 30, 35 or more days to complete their locates. There's so much work happening in Leamington. So that's one thing that delayed some of the construction this year. But yes, we did include to continue that project in 2018.
That's 315,000 we have squirreled away for that. What do you think that portion is to take it from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes with the bike lanes? Of the 315,000, what all is that? Is it the entire shot of 315? Can you give me a better idea there?
Mr. Neufeld?
Alan, if I'm not mistaken, that's just a study, right, that's being conducted on that portion of Erie Street?
I believe Councillor Wilkinson's referring to the portion between Oak and Melrose. We have a line item, we have an amount of money in the engineering operating budget to work on a study on Erie Street between Melrose and Seacliff Drive to look at the possible lane reductions in that area as well. But I believe you're asking me, how much did we award the contract, how much was the contract award to Ron Field for the PXO and bike lane work, and how much is this?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what we awarded the contract for.
And that's for actual changes. That's not for, it's been awarded, so that's going to go here this year in 2018, where right now it's set to go down to 2 lanes, correct? The road diet?
That's between Oak, yes, between Oak and Melrose. But that's not everything that's included in this budget. We're including for something like a dozen different PXO crossings, the new signs, posts, flashing lights. A portion of this is for line painting.
Well, I got buyer's remorse on this one. I know that we approved this one here about 2 months ago is when that one came to council, and I was looking for it in here. I just didn't see it, but I'd like to have that discussion here to see if anybody else has the same feelings. But as for me, I've reevaluated my stance on that one. And this road diet idea from Oak Street to Melrose that we approved a little while ago, I've changed. I got to change of heart on that one, and that's where I was looking for these dollars in here.
Yeah, from Oak to Melrose.
engineers recommended it, and
Yeah.
that was what.
Yeah, I thought that was just perceived.
So, okay, I don't know what to do here because this is budget deliberations, but it's the amount we're talking about that you're saying that you probably don't want to spend because you don't think you want to do the road diet on. It's amazing. And I don't mean that at you because I've heard it from other council members too. And the overall thought on this, we'd already done the conceptual and we're moving ahead on it. And I'm a little troubled by changing minds just when we're ready to go and do it all. So,
At the same time, I think this is the appropriate time. If we're ever going to do it, this is the appropriate time. So,
Mr. Neufeld.
I understand your concern. That the process then, I'm assuming, would be the same as reconsideration of any decision of council. That there would have to be that the process would have to be followed to bring a matter back. But I think in this particular case, we've talked about this a number of times, but part of the process that we talked about, and I'm going to just bring you back to this, is that a major concern that we have been hearing from our residents is bikes on the sidewalks. So we have engaged the engineers to take a look at Erie Street, and the report came back recommending that we move to bike lanes, driving lanes, and one turning lane, which was great because it helped to address the bikes on the sidewalk issue. And that is based on traffic engineers doing the work that they do. If council wants to bring this back, that is their prerogative through the proper processes of bringing a report back. In other words, somebody who had previously approved it has to make a motion, has to be seconded, and so on and so forth. But at this point, we're trying to get the budget passed so that we can start moving forward. If I would suggest what we could do is, at the very least, approve the budget in principle with a commitment to allowing council then to ask the question to see if it's going to go through the process, rather than trying to isolate this component, keep it out of the budget. We would just, administration would commit, at least at this point, not to immediately spend it, and we'll, noting that there may be some concerns. And so that's just the procedural side of it, because once we get into the report itself, I think that there's going to have to be some pretty tough discussions on why now there is a change of heart and what it's based on, in contrary to what the engineering recommendations would be. Okay.
Yes, and just further to that, that work, the painting of those lines on Erie Street South between Oak and Melrose, yep. That was part of a large contract, $550,000, $560,000 contract that looked at pedestrian crossings and those sorts of things. Because the paint is not down currently, and I don't think there's a plan to have it down imminently, we can likely isolate that part of the contract. It won't be a lot of money. I don't think money is the issue here. And the funds have already been raised, so we're just funding it out of reserves anyway, so it won't create a taxation issue. But again, that is beyond that. We did a community-wide active transportation master plan. And certainly, it was identified at that time in the master plan. The master plan was approved by council. Then the project was brought forward for consideration. That was approved by council. At budget time, Then we brought forward the tender award, we awarded the tender, and that was approved by council. But again, the paint's not down, so we can still pull it. But I think the concern would be, and if we're starting, if council is feeling some reservations, I would suggest then perhaps we should start revisiting our master plan. Or just have another look at it, have council confirm, and maybe we'll do that when we bring this issue back, if it's council's desire that we do that. Bring the master plan back and say, okay, this is what we're working off of, because once again, we bring these master plans for a reason. If there are things in there that council does not like or doesn't want to see, certainly that's the time to have those discussions, because that is sort of the plan and the way forward when we bring those things to council.
Alan?
Just to drill this down to my interest at the moment, Rob's right, this was a very large project. It was $500,000. So the actual line painting and lane reductions on Erie Street was a very small part of the project. We still, Leamington has to replace all of our courtesy crossings and get rid of those and put in the new crossing systems that are recommended by the province. So that's part of this project too, that all the urban area courtesy crossings will go away and we'll get the proper crossings in place. It included for the line painting on Wilkinson Drive, which is in place and I believe looks and works very well. Pulford works very well. We've got some line painting along Erie Street North here that will fit in nicely here. So again, this budget includes for the cost to do those works as well. So I'd like to keep going with the construction of getting rid of the courtesy crossings and building the new pedestrian crossings.
And I'm with you there.
And just holding on to that work on the line painting on Erie Street.
Exactly. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Councillor, excuse me, Councillor Verbeke.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine's a little one. It's on the bottom of page 67. I'd like to know how many lights you put up and where do you put them out in the rural area? Is it based on accidents, complaints, people wanting one? It's the rural street lighting and installation improvement upgrades. There's still a lot of concessions out there. I know we don't own some of them because it's the province and county, but I just want to know how do you evaluate where these lights go?
Much of the work we've done historically is by request and just knowing that we have dark intersections. So we did spend some money on some intersections, I would say in the northeast quadrant of town and the northwest. We do need to move back into the southern end of town. But this amount of money is for one or two lights, and we're looking at lighting along Peely Drive in that area. That's likely where something will occur in 2018. But that amount of money will get us maybe two lights.
Councillor Hammond?
Mayor, thank you. And to that point, that was one of the questions I had too, by the way. One of the questions I was going to talk about, with a limited amount of money of $5,000 put into the budget for rural lighting, and that includes the upgrade and the improvement of some of the current lighting. We talked last year at this time about looking at putting more lights in the rural areas, specifically out 77 Highway where the intersections are. And I would like us to go back to that again, where we're looking at doing more of that, especially now with all the new poles that are put up there on the 6th and so on. It would be nice to light up all of those intersections as we go along. It's obviously not feasible for this year, but I'd like you to consider that again, in next year's budget. I know we talked about it last year at the same time, about adding more lights in the rural areas. But anyway, so I made that point. But to the other question I have is, under general infrastructure, and maybe my question should be directed to Peter, is that how close are we to convincing both Walmart and Canadian Tire to join those two properties? Because if we're going to have, I see you smiling, so if we're going to have some investment in that, it should appear in this budget as well, should it not?
We've had a number of discussions. Canadian Tire has agreed to this. RioCan has not yet. We're still in discussions with them. The agreement that I have suggested to them would allow the municipality to move forward within 24 months, basically, of that being done. I can't see, if they came back tomorrow and said, yes, you can move ahead with it, the engineering of the connector is going to take some work anyway, so I would suggest that the earliest that we would get to building it would be in 2019.
I believe that, speaking personally, I don't think there's an issue or a question that's raised more often than when are you going to do that or when is that going to happen. You hear it everywhere you go. And there was some excitement about the fact we knew when Canadian Tire agreed that, that they would allow that to happen, that we would, heavily pursue and try to put some leverage on Walmart to get that to happen. Because, I mean, we're talking now about the lanes on Erie Street South, and that would go a long way. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here. We all know what that means. So it needs to be noted that we need to put some leverage on Walmart to try to make this happen.
And that has been happening. So, like, from the administrative standpoint, they have been after these guys and will continue to do so. Mr. Scher?
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. In this budget, we do have money to study traffic movements in and around the Erie South area, really to understand if the bike lanes do go in, what are the consequences on traffic. If there are other entrances to some commercial areas there, perhaps off Seacliff, what would that do to traffic? If this connection is made, I mean, council has to remember what we're potentially talking about is spending a significant amount of taxpayer dollars on private commercial property. And in order to do that, I think it's very important that you can demonstrate through good data the reasons that you did that. We spent that money to make that connection between those commercial properties for the following reasons. It alleviates traffic off Erie South, it allows things to happen, but it's important that you go through that process to justify those decisions and not simply because, a lot of people think they should be able to drive between those two commercial properties. That's going forward a couple years after the project, that's not great evidence and support as to why that decision was made. And so the study that we'll undertake in 18, will help identify some of that. We'll look at design. We don't know how detailed it would look at specifically. I mean, we're focused more on the impact of traffic, not specifically, the civil design of the civil works. But we'll also take that opportunity, if it does recommend that connection, to lay out a design and put some project costing to that for council's consideration.
Mr. Neufeld?
This is exactly the opposite side of the other concern that I have with council starting to second guess whether we want to go to the road diet as recommended by the Active Transportation. What Rob is getting at is that we have to make our decisions based on supported data and not unsupported assumptions. Because we can assume that connecting those two areas would reduce the traffic, and it, for some reason, might make it worse because we merely made assumptions, we didn't actually study it. It's the same thing with assuming that taking the lanes from 4 to 3 will create problems. Our engineering research tells us that it won't. And so I think it's important that we make decisions based on supported data on both sides, both with connecting or with reducing or not reducing the traffic flows. That's why we do these studies.
Deputy Mayor?
Just a comment, really, to the question of whether or not this is the place to bring up our hesitations. I recall, you'll probably all recall last year when we were going ahead with the sidewalk on Benny, it was in here and it was approved. And then to the lamenting of administration, of time, and correctly so, time and expense made in designing and planning and so on, council changed their mind. So at least now it is on the table that there are some hesitations in regards to this. So that really, I do think this is the place to at least put the flag there, whether or not I agree. I'm just saying this is the place, so you know what's already on some minds.
Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Your Worship. Along those lines, I guess I was under the misconception that I know in some recent discussions, we talked about the digesting of lanes to bike lanes and turning lanes and so forth, but I was under the assumption that was strictly on the drawing board. I wasn't aware that we already, technically, I guess, passed between Oak and Melrose. So, I'm right on board with Councillor Wilkinson on this one. I cannot see us digesting that. I've got reservations galore on this whole issue. And, yeah, I think we should, put the brakes on it or look at this thing again, the sooner the better, I guess, but for your process. But I guess I was under the misconception that this was not taking place at this stage of the game, that it was going to come back before us yet.
Well, it's not taking place in the section that you're most concerned about. I don't think the run between Oak and Melrose is as big a concern as where you are focused, which is there down to Seacliff Drive. But yeah, we passed this a while ago, which is what concerns me is now some people are changing their position. But in light of the fact that it's been raised, so admin's aware. They've said we can sideline that expenditure for the time being, and we take a look at it again from the planning side of things. The only reason you're just catching me off guard that we're going to pull something out of the budget, and that's all my comment was about. So the flag has been raised. Yes, Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Regarding your comment, though, that it doesn't affect from Melrose to Seacliff, I guess. That would be the other section.
Yes.
But wouldn't it be, or Oak rather, or wouldn't it be, I guess, just as advantageous if we're going to do it from Oak to Seacliff, because that's where this traffic situation seems to come into place. So to me, doing it in one shot would be better than piecemealing it. Oh, I'm saying leave it at 4 lanes, and because I've got issues, and I don't know whether you want to say this now, but the issue here is with this active transportation system, like putting those bike lanes on a high volume stretch of road that's really is an arterial road for our district down there. And I don't want to bring it up now. I guess we can discuss that all later. This is budget, but that's, I think, where the concerns lie. Thank you.
Understood. So my comments on this is awesome budget, first of all. In the grand scheme of things, regardless of this one little issue that we're talking about, seeing $1.5 million set aside or budgeted for the trails finally being built along Seacliff Drive, even though there's some still bitter taste left in my mouth about the whole situation. And the other projects you've got in here, Alan, that's why I kind of jokingly quipped at the very first, have you got enough to do for next year? This is amazing again. The comments I receive around town based on last year and this year's efforts by our community, your department, people are just in awe of what we are doing. They've never seen so much positive happening in this municipality as what's happening right now. So my congratulations to all involved in that, and best wishes on the 2018 efforts too, because it looks like you've got your hands full again. So I didn't have any questions to raise on this. I thought it was just a great budget. Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship. I also like that fact that the putting in for CWATs, the paves for the bike path towards Point Pelee. I know the people down there will be very excited about that. There's a lot of people that wanted that, so good to put that in. So, and I got a kudos. The same thing with the mayor said about all the work that's being done. It's just amazing. Kudos to you.
So if there are no more questions, Councillor?
Thank you, Worship. Alan, you mentioned earlier for the bike lanes on County Road 20 that, I hope I understood you right, the county is going to do that project, or are we going to do that?
They do it.
Who has control of that project?
They do.
It is a county project. So they'll do the project management, and we're a funding partner in this. So we'll comment on the design, or we'll comment on the tendering process, but it's under their care and control.
Well, they will tender the project and, I guess, engineer it in the whole 9 yards then, right? We just pay our buck. Okay.
It is what it is. Okay, no more. Thank you very much for that report. Move on to sewers then.
Thank you again. The sewer budget funds sewer maintenance, urban drain maintenance, sewer capital projects, and is managed by public works and drainage staff on the maintenance side and engineering staff on the capital side. The budget is focused on the urban area of Leamington, both the existing and our expansion of our sewer service area. Public works staff manage the day-to-day operation of our sewer system, including the mainline and private drain connections. That includes repair and the annual cleaning programs. The budget segment dedicated to day-to-day operations is approximately $700,000 and is typically funded from taxation. The 2018 capital budget segment is estimated to be $6.8 million, and revenue for these projects comes from funding programs like the Small Communities Fund, reserves, taxation of just under $900,000, recoveries from the benefiting property owners from the new sewer systems. So some of the main comments on the projects for this year, the capital projects. We have Peely Drive, Bevel Line Sanitary Sewer Project. Phases 1 and 2 are in service with about 20 customers already online and having gone through the entire permitting process. There's a few that are in process. In Phase 4, we have the piping complete, and the pumping station near Road D will begin construction in the spring. The contractor's planning on beginning Phase 3 in the spring of 2018. Phase 3 is between Ellis Side Road and Mercy Road D. We are paving, the pavement you see there is base asphalt, so in 2019 we'll be coming back and paving the entire length of the project from Point Peely National Park all the way to the bridge. And hopefully folding in the active transportation plan and the bike lanes at that time. Funding for the project, if it's approved through the functional design study. The project, Peely Drive project, is funded by the benefiting property owners. We also have a small communities fund contribution of 50% up to $4 million. And yes, that project's underway. The Northeast Trunk Sewer, we have an environmental study report that's underway for the expansion of the sanitary sewer service area in Leamington that's necessary to accommodate current and future approved planned growth to the north, northwest, and east of the current sanitary service area. At this time, the existing sanitary system does not capture the employment lands that we have designated to the north of the urban area and to the east of the current urban area, and this limits economic growth and development. There's also an opportunity to better service the greenhouse industry, wastewater needs, and meet our municipal economic development objectives. The engineer's study is funded from Infrastructure Reserve at the moment, and they expect to have the draft environmental assessment or environmental study report ready by the end of January for our review and discussion. We'll have design work continuing through the spring and summer of 2018. I mentioned the Erie South Conover Stewart Forest project. Once complete, the sewers within the Erie Street South area that's again confined by Seacliff Park, Seacliff Drive, and Erie Street South, that area there will be completely separated, at least the piping systems. And then following the sewer separation by the property owners, the station at the foot of Erie Street will become a dedicated sanitary pumping station. And that gets us one step closer to removing the combined sewage out of the Seacliff Drive sewer that's intended to be our trunk sewer to collect sewage from the west end of town, along County Road 20 out to County Road 31. We expect this project to be tender ready again in the new year and a contract and construction beginning early in the spring. I've already touched on the Mill Street revitalization program. The line item in the sewer budget is for the sanitary sewer and storm sewer components of the work. And the design, just so council knows, the design work for that will be going concurrently with the Uptown Revitalization Plan so that the outcomes of the Uptown Revitalization will be reflected in the final construction plans for Mill Street. And that's all that I have for sewers.
If I could really quickly just ask before I go to the rest of the council, when you talked about Peely Drive and the asphalt coating first layer, whatever it is, you said 2019, 18,
2019 for surface
2019.
asphalt.
The final. That's the final coat,
Yes.
though. Okay. I'm sure you're up and down that road as much as the rest of us are up and down that road. And the patchwork that has been done so far in phase would have been phase 2. 1? 2. 2, yeah, which we did first before we did phase 1, right? Anyway, you know, along Freddy's and along that section there, it's really rough. Can that be improved upon between now and then? Like, because we all know next year is the big year for the point, and that's the only access route into it. So,
Sure, we have to maintain it, and I would expect through the winter we're going to see some heaving through that area too. So the contractor is responsible to maintain the road condition.
okay,
So we'll definitely have a chat with him.
okay, all right. That was just one that popped into my head while you were talking. So, questions from council? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Alan, on the EA and engineering and everything else, when this comes to a funding envelope, are those costs wrapped into that, or are they borne solely by the municipality, like getting shovel-ready?
I would expect that we'll track the expenditures on this project much like we track Peely Drive. So every dollar that we put into it now that's funded through reserve will get included in the total project cost, and then we can have discussions about how they get tracked in the future.
We're not, I guess, able to garnish any funding for getting shovel-ready with the EAs and engineering and so forth? You know where I'm going with that, right?
Mr. Dufail.
If, are you referring to the northeast trunk? Well, I'll speak specifically to the northeast trunk. We have spent a significant amount of money completing the environmental assessment. I think we're up to $650,000 right now. There is no funding for that. That is us getting prepared. That is us showing our commitment to the upper levels of government that we are serious about this and will be shovel ready. That doesn't go unnoticed by the upper levels of government. It will place us in a better position to leverage, I believe, greater funding. There is no funding envelope right now for that kind of a project. That is something specifically that we are working on as it relates to the draft action plan for reduction of phosphorus to Lake Erie.
I know it's important that we do all this. I was just curious of the fact, would we be able to recoup some of those funds if it became available? But I understand where you're going with that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not? Thank you again for that report. Transit.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So on page 79, the transit budget funds the operation of the Leamington Transit, our contributions to the South Essex Community Council for specialized transit, which we talked about last night, and a portion of our engineering technologist wages. Leamington, again, currently operates one transit route, 12 months of the year, and a second route along Erie Street between Victoria Day and the Labor Day weekend. We're actively working with a company called the Transit Consulting Network to complete a master plan by the end of March 2018. I'm curious to know if anyone made it out to the open house at Walmart, which was a first for me to have an open house in a Walmart. Anyway, it worked out well. We have a great consultant. They're getting a lot of good feedback from different stakeholders about our transit system, and being in the Walmart gave them access to a lot of people. I expect to have that report back to council shortly, and so we can make some decisions on our transit system. Specifically, though, the transit operating budget is estimated to be $280,000, with approximately $222,000 directly for the operation of the bus. The remainder covers wages, again, our contributions to SECC, and maintenance of our bus shelters. The budget is funded from the Ontario gas tax program and taxation of approximately $130,000. We have some minor considerations for 2018 that include just maybe the purchase of some buses, benches, some signage, bus pads and things like that. That's in the capital budget. In the operating budget, we have, again, the new agreement with the South Essex Community Council that we approved last night for the expenditure of approximately $20,000 annually toward expenses, and approximately $7,500 toward capital reserves. But those are, again, based on our ridership, our portion of the ridership. And again, in Leamington, we seem to be around 50% for that work. And that's really all we have for the transit system.
Okay. Councillor Verbicki?
Mr. the Mayor, thanks. I don't know if I need to care now. Maybe it won't be here in 2020. But is it possible that you could split those bus purchases up over 2 years instead of having a one big hit in 1 year? I mean, I know they're not... I was upset at the first time when we purchased two. Can that one just last a little bit longer? And it doesn't matter if you change this bus sticker to 1 and 2, whichever one goes down first, to make sure that we can... it's going to be a hard hit in 2020 to kind of even that out a little.
I agree, and that came up in our discussion with our consultant, and it came up this past summer when we had our buses go down at the same time with the same problem, virtually within the same month. So that was correct. That consideration will be something we talk about for our next round of...
Mr. Sharon?
Yeah, Councillor, through Mayor Patterson. Councillor, the idea of a hit, these funds are retained in an Ontario Transit Gas Tax Reserve Fund, so it wouldn't impact any particular year. So from financial purposes, there's really no benefit to, buying one year and one the next year, or two in the same year. Operationally, we'll have to have some discussions about what makes more sense. Do we want to stagger them? For various maintenance and life cycle replacement purposes, recognizing that that comes at the detriment of multiple procurement processes, multiple tenders, potentially two different vehicles, therefore two different vendors, two different part suppliers, all of those sorts of things operationally, against the potential benefits of staggering the purchase. So we haven't quite got there yet, but I just wanted council to be aware that there isn't a specific in-year hit we'll have to take, and there's no benefit of spreading it out. We have the Ontario Transit Gas Tax funds there for the purchases.
Thank you. Worthy Mayor, are they both up and running now? Because I'm not sure if you're still going north and south, but I see the short little bus there was running east and west.
I believe one is down at the moment. We have a transmission situation.
Mr. Neufeld?
And to throw one more layer on top of that, I have also indicated that I'd like to see what it would look like to change over to electric bus vehicles so that we can reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our environmental footprint with our buses as well.
Maybe we can do autonomous too, right? Yeah, there we go. Councillor Dunn.
Through you, Your Worship. I just noticed when you said about putting in fixtures and benches, and we talked about this before, about when it came to the benches, some of them are wood and they have to be refinished at times. I was just thinking about have you considered that composite, the plastic composite, so that it doesn't have to be refinished on a regular basis? I know we talked about that before.
I'll admit I do take some advice from Public Works on the benches and the bench styles that we buy, just to be in keeping with what they're purchasing. But I'll pass that along.
Okay. Councillor Hammond?
Thank you, Your Worship. $75,000 in professional services last year and to nothing in 18. What would constitute $75,000 in professional services? I'm on page 81, Al.
The study. I just hop all.
Sorry, I have that number. I know some of that was taken up in the transit master plan study, and we're not doing that this year. I just wanted to verify that, unless that's...
Yep. So really quickly on the study, will it lend the possibility to considering expanding our services? I know that's ultimately what it's all about, but I mean expanding it out of into the Wheatley-Kingsville area, like I've talked about for...
Certainly, there were two components in the study. Three, sorry, to study our existing system in the municipality of Leamington, and to study interconnection between Kingsville, Leamington, and Wheatley, and to study interconnection with Windsor.
Okay. I just couldn't remember. I thought it was included in that, but that's a good verification. With the amount of money that it was either the feds or the province that were throwing it out there for transit systems, this study is possibly very timely for us then, if we were going to go into additional purchases, that there may be extra transit funding out there for us to get our hands on. Reasonable expectation? Good, okay. Thank you. Well, I know Toronto gets it all, but we'll try. So is that it, Mr. Sharon, for your department?
Yes, Mayor Patterson. Short of just noting, we always include a very small budget called infrastructure services that essentially represents some administrative costs out of my department area that we in turn then allocate out to the various cost centers, public works, engineering, sewers. It's about $12,000.
Okay.
But that's in there as well, but
All right.
no explanation needed beyond that.
Very good. Okay, so Ms. Percy pointed out to me that last year, as we went through each department, we would pass or not pass or whatever their budget. So we've got the one item that is noted in the, where was that, engineering. But other than that, is everybody comfortable with?
It would be adopted.
Adopting, that's right.
Infrastructure Services 2018 budget be adopted.
Do you want to do that on the microphone so they can all hear you say that?
Consistent with what was done last year, the recommendation would be that the Infrastructure Services 2018 budget be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Verbicki, support by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Carried. One done. Community Development Services is our next. Oh, we are? Okay. We're going to legal and legislative. And that's in tab 11. Take it away, Ms. Horton.
Thank you. I'll start with the legal and legislative services budget and then continue through the other service areas within that department. So legal services is responsible for the provision of legal services to council and municipal departments. That includes conducting prosecutions, hearings, coordinating insurance claims, providing information and assistance to our insurer and to our insurer's appointed lawyers, acting on behalf of the municipality for uninsured claims, drafting and reviewing documents, including contracts, bylaws, policies, and providing legal advice just generally to other municipal departments, reviewing and implementing procedures and processes to reduce risk and to improve efficiencies. Legislative Services is responsible for customer service, preparing council agendas and minutes, conducting the municipal election, records management, cemetery administration, providing various services to the public, including business licensing, death registrations, marriage licensing, solemnizations, and general administration of various bylaws. This year, we continue to focus on customer service. Our 3 customer service representatives can now take tax payments and other payments, provide significant amount of information on various municipal services to the public. We have expanded City Works to include requests for bylaw enforcement and services from Public Works, Engineering, Pollution Control, and we continue to expand those into the Building Department. With the addition of a staff lawyer, we have also enhanced legal services. We are able to keep most legal matters in-house now, and we have undertaken some larger scale enforcement proceedings. So just flipping over to the budget for legal and legislative services. You'll note that there is an increased revenue in the license and permits, and that's in light of the anticipated revenue from the business licensing bylaw. You'll note also we have a new line item for recoveries, and that's a recovery from the building department in consideration of those legal services that are now provided in-house. In salaries and benefits, you'll note that there is one contract position noted for implementation of the licensing bylaw, and the carryover from 2017 of the remainder of the contract position for cemetery services, which was inputting all of our old cemetery data into our new cemetery software. Under professional services, you'll note that there's a reduction to $15,000, again in consideration for our in-house legal counsel rather than utilizing external legal counsel for some legal matters. And then you'll note the obvious expense for the election and the corresponding transfer into the revenue from the election reserve. So that is the legal and legislative services budget.
Thank you very much. Questions? Oh, well, we got to go through all of them yet. Yep, but, okay.
Shall I
thanks very
continue
much.
on?
Yep, human resource.
To human resources, this year we're one member of our staff short for part of the year, but even in light of that, you'll see that there was a total of 15 full-time recruitments and 9 temporary contract position recruitments in addition to our summer student recruitments, so there was a lot of work being done in human resources. We also undertook a salary review, and that the results of which will be presented early in 2018. Just flipping over again to the budget, that's on page 119. The only significant difference from 2017 is in the training line. You'll note that there's a $21,500, and that would be a new initiative for corporate training for managers and supervisors who have indicated that they've been looking for some leadership training and new tools to assist them in managing staff. So that's a new initiative for the Human Resources Department.
Questions or comments? Mr. Neufeld.
One comment that I want to make is that, as Ruth noted, we've been short a staff member for approximately 3 months now.
Feels like 6.
That was going to be to my point, that Danielle Harrison has stepped up. There is absolutely no way that she could maintain the pace of work and the amount of the volume of work that she has undertaken over the last few months. But I think that we knew that Emily is going to be returning in January, and finding somebody to replace that maternity leave for such a short period of time was going to be most difficult. And Danielle has stepped up and has covered off, along with assistance from Ruth and others. But I just wanted to make a point that we need 2 people in human resources, but Danielle has really stepped up over the last 3 months, but she couldn't maintain the pace that she's put in lately.
So no questions. We'll move on to bylaw enforcement.
Bylaw enforcement, the budget is at page 122. We've maintained our complement of officers this year. We continue, obviously, to focus on our uptown and proactive enforcement when we can. A taxi bylaw, of course, is always something that keeps us very busy. and in the future, we'll be looking at enforcing the business licensing bylaw as well. No real variances to point out this year, except for, again, the reduction in the professional services line, which is where the funds used to be spent on external legal counsel. Now we're dealing with all of that internally. So that's the bylaw enforcement budget.
Questions? Councillor Verbicki?
For the mayor, how's the new, I got to commend the guy. He's probably the only guy making money in this municipality. There's a traffic police, the parking attendant. Sorry,
Ryan.
well, I thought it was bylaw. Never mind. I'll switch it then. I'll wait.
I'll be doing that one right now, so I can speak to that.
Well, we're still in bylaw enforcement, right?
yes.
Yep. So Councillor Wilkinson had a,
Thank you, Your Worship. Ruth, last year we had talked about adding a CityWorks email address for people to email instead of calling in. Has there been any progress on that?
Yes, and sorry, I did get your email on that. So I did check into our IT department. So the CityWorks software platform is hosted by the county, and there is an external email that has now been set up by the county for that purpose. I understand it will be likely launched in early January, so there will be that portal for the public to enter their information right into the CityWorks platform, and that will be emailed to the appropriate staff, so directly through the CityWorks. Currently, there is the possibility for people to email the clerk's general email, but we haven't made that public because we knew we were going to this new system. That will be the preference for the external service requests to be processed.
Fantastic, thank you. And one other thing I'm going to ask if it's a possibility. We've seen the reports that come from our recent fire chief where he sends us out, these monthly reports. When it comes to CityWorks, would there be a possibility that we could see a monthly or quarterly, you don't have to have names on there, but, just something where we can see what's going on in those bylaw departments. I think there'd be some great stuff that we'd all appreciate seeing in there. It's just a request.
Sure, we can do that.
okay, no other questions? So then we can move on to parking. And we'll go back to Councillor Verbicki after you're done.
You'll see in the parking revenue, we were conservative in the 2018 budget. Just looking at the 2017 actuals, we've been doing a good job in obtaining some revenue through parking enforcement. You'll note in the expenses, we're carrying forward a $10,000 tech hardware purchase. We're still looking to try to find a handheld parking ticket platform that is compatible with our VADM system. So we're still, that's an ongoing search. We did have some possibilities last year, but they didn't prove to be as compatible as we would like to see. There is just a $18,000 amount for just general maintenance that Public Works undertakes. And then there was a transfer to reserves this year, so we're looking at building up that parking reserve fund.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Verbicki?
For the mayor, thanks. You didn't answer my question about the handheld device, but anybody who can make $50,000 and $55 for the town is a good guy in my eyes.
Obviously, you didn't have to pay a ticket. Or two for your wife. Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Just on Larry's question, that is all not done by our enforcement officer. Some of that's from the hospital as well, correct?
That's right. Yes, we do retain the revenues from the hospital, the tickets that are given out by the hospital staff and the OPP. Yes. But I like to think it's all Ryan.
Councillor Hammond?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've noted this on pretty much all of the reports, but I'll ask you this one specifically, Ruth. When it talks to salaries and benefits in terms of increases, I know some are justified because we've changed classifications of employees, some are justified because we've added people. But in this case, 5.69% increase in wages. Is that to the individuals that are currently in those positions that are going to receive an additional 5%? That's projected.
Sure.
Laura?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Patterson. That is specifically in this with the 5.69, so that is the economic adjustment as well as the progression increases through the salary grade. So it looks like it's, well, it is more than the 2%, but there are progressions. So we don't budget at the highest level, we budget at actual.
Further questions? See none? So then we'll go on to the last part, the animal control.
Thank you. I'll take you to the joint animal control budget first. That's on page 128. And you will recall that we did RFP for animal control, and so that is reflected within this budget as well as the animal control budget. So the first line is the grant revenue. That is the contribution from Leamington and Kingsville for animal control. And then just moving down to the building maintenance under the expense column. Last year, we had a building maintenance expense related to the roof. We don't anticipate a large expenditure this year for any capital works or any ongoing maintenance to the building. The animal control officer is the contract price to our new officer that was the successful proponent in the RFP. If you just then flip back one page to the animal control budget, you'll see Leamington's contribution at the line indicating animal control officer under the expense column. And again, that's based on just a 50% share this year, which is based on the average over the last 3 years of calls for Leamington. The $8,600 expense for professional services is the commissioners who we contract with to do enforcement of the dog tag program. So that is the animal control and joint animal control budget.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Just for me, Ruth or Laura, whoever wants to answer it, the joint and the operating nuts and bolts, what does Leamington pay? Half of all those numbers that, like you've got 79.6 and 64.3. So if I add those together and divide by 2, that's our share.
Sorry, can you just tell me which budget you're looking at?
Both of them, actually. I just want to know what animal control was costing the Municipality of Leamington. So you've got your joint at 79,600 and the operating budget at 64.3.
64.3.
That's our cost?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Questions? None? So we're good there. So the same motion, if Brenda, would you like to word it out for me?
That the Legal and Legislative Services 2018 budget be adopted.
Yes, it is. So moved by Councillor Dunn, seconded by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Now we're going back to Community and Development Services. All right. Are we good? Everybody good? Okay. Paul?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry for jumping out of line, but seems Bashara has gone MIA, and so I'll go through his presentation for council. He may return in between. So we'll start with the tourism and economic development piece, and Danielle will do the planning, and then I'll do the building inspection.
Very good.
Okay. So looking forward in 2018 to having people actually working in the tourism and economic development department. So I want to say that before I start.
Tourism and culture, I'll start with tourism and culture. Tourism and culture works collaboratively with economic development in business attraction and community development. Staffing includes the culture and tourism developer who focuses on development and implementation of a tourism strategy in conjunction with economic development, product development, and providing services that aid in promoting and enhancing Leamington's tourism brand. And I think that Kara should be back somewhere around the end of January, we're hoping, and that's the last word I had on that position, so hopefully it'll be filled in. The activities of 2017 focus on the development of a tourism brand that would impact Leamington's status as a top-of-mind tourism destination. This includes the launch of a new tourism website on the42nd.com. Also, a major focus of the tourism office this past season was to organize and plan events related to the Canada 150th celebration and the Sip and Savor. And I'll talk about the Sip and Savor later because I know Council wants to have a conversation about that. For the 2018 budget year, the culture and tourism developer will focus on the implementation of the tourism strategy, including branding, marketing, and communication initiatives. Furthermore, with the construction of the new stage at Seacliff Park, it's anticipated that the culture and tourism developer will play a greater role in planning of community development events at the park, as well as the 2018 Sip and Savor event. This role will continue to be a key point of contact with regional and provincial tourism partners, including local tourism attractions, the regional destination marketing organization, Tourism Windsor Essex Peely Island, TWEPI, and the regional tourism office in Ontario's Southwest or SWATC. The tourism office will continue to strengthen these relationships and promote Leamington as a key player in the tourism landscape of the region and province. Now on the Sip and Savor, I guess focusing on the budget, just one highlight on the budget. There is under other operating expenses, there's a $10,000 increase to that, and that $10,000 was put in there for the new ferry, the celebration for the new ferry launch. So that's a significant increase, but it's a one-time only number. With regards to the Sip and Savor, I think, I don't know if Council all received it and had time to go through it. I sent out sort of a supplement, some notes to the budget on the Sip and Savor. It's really difficult at this time because we haven't truly got into the planning stage. These are more ideas and concepts and things that we floated around. We're trying to make it more accessible. I think the budget that we're bringing to Council this year is more realistic than last year. One of the faults when we came to Council with the budget last year is we had projected, came to Council with a budget that had projected a $45,000 cost to taxation, but included in that was a revenue item. Our revenue line was really inflated with regards to, we had a $50,000 grant application that we didn't receive those funds. So when we were turned down on those funds, right off the bat, that would have been a $95,000 deficit, and we had to manage it from there and the challenges that we had. This year, I think we're coming to Council with a more realistic budget, but I also think that our revenue numbers, and if you see from the notes that I gave you, that our revenue numbers this year are very, very conservative, and we've already had some interest, I think, from one particular business with regards to a major sponsorship that we may or may not get. We're trying to work on those types of things right now. We've changed the format of the contract. Should we move forward with this, we've changed the format of the contract for the consultant, so there's more incentive in this year to raise funds or to increase revenue. So we've come to Council with a budget that shows a cost of taxation of around $72,000, I think it is. Not sure of the number. Yeah, $76,550. But I really think that would be the worst case scenario. I think that there's a lot more potential this year for generation of revenue in it. And I think that I guess my own feeling, and I think administration's feeling, is that the budget for this year, given that revenue, there's more potential for revenue, would at the end of the day be more likely to be in line with previous events. So Again, it's difficult because we haven't got, these are just things that we've come up with at this stage until we actually engage a consultant and sit down and now that James's position is there and Kara comes back, it's difficult to say, where we'll be at the end of the day with this. But I think this budget is a lot more realistic than what we came to you with in the past.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Berbiki?
Through the mayor, I just want to know, how long were we without a tourism person?
I'm thinking September, October, yeah. And then the feeling, I guess, then it was after the Sip and Savor and any type of major event.
No, I just
yeah.
wanted to know because, so for, say, 4 months we didn't have one, but yet the wages have increased. So I want to know,
Oh,
it went from 93 to 101. I just want to know what the difference was if we didn't have a person working in it.
We did. We had a temporary contract person, yeah.
No.
Yeah. and
Yeah,
then,
I do know this year that when we brought on the maternity leave replacement, we brought that on early. That may have contributed to an increase in salary. I know that Veronica was probably on 3 or so months before Kara actually went off. Kara went late into her pregnancy. Yeah.
And I guess in the conversations we have about maybe going through again with the Sip and Savor, all the money we saved without having a tourism officer, I guess that just went by the wayside, but I see you're going to make it up on development.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To start with, before I get into Sip and Savor, Paul, where are dollars for the amphitheater events? I'm
That's in the culture and,
okay.
yeah, it's on the agenda for later, for tomorrow, but it is there, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to start the Sip and Savor conversation. I'm not feeling terribly confident, Paul, when you've repeated the word difficult probably 5 times in referring to Sip and Savor. Sip and Savor. I loved the idea of this. Going into it, I was very excited. I think that we had tremendous potential in the first year. Last year, I think there were a whole lot of contributing factors to why it did and didn't work out. And in theory, I would love to keep going forward, but I've just, my 2 big things, and Paul just cemented the last one by referring to difficult. I don't have any confidence going forward. And when Mr. Neufeld said, we're going to change the emphasis of this festival to turn it down, is that what? Put the emphasis on entertainment, then I feel we've lost the whole idea of Sip and Savor. Then, to me, if we're going to put the emphasis on entertainment, then we need to take it to the amphitheater and drop this entirely. I'm fine with taking it to the amphitheater and making a whole entertainment thing. And I also go back to the fact that we were not successful. And I'm going to say the whole community, because I think we all own a share of this. We were not successful with Tomato Festival for many, many, many years. So that makes me think that the mood, the people are not buying into a food festival of any sort, and haven't for quite a few years. And to me, when it's that blatant, and you have tried it that many times in 2 different ways, then perhaps it's time to move on. And I said when we discussed it there a couple weeks ago, it should be a no-brainer, because there's the Corn Festival, there's the Strawberry Festival, there's the Rib Fest, there was the Wine Festival, all those things, and communities are making a go of it. But then, on further contemplation, I thought, why do we have to do what everyone else is doing? Maybe we need to go in the vein of Hogs for Hospice and do it on strictly entertainment. Forget the culinary. Yes, that's a great aspect and a great side to our community, but maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we need to stand on our own. Maybe standing on our own with the amphitheater, with entertainment, and with that, we can, I mean, food trucks can still come. Just, to me, this isn't working. How many times do you have to hit your head against a wall to figure you're not going to get through that wall? And to me, that's what this is telling me. Like I said to you, in my heart of hearts at the beginning, I said to the mayor, I don't want to give up. But again, when something isn't working, the one group tried it, now we tried it. And honestly, I'm not so sure that the people that have been with us for 2 years will come back for the third try. So to me, I'm at the point where I would be ready to forget Sip and Savor and take that money and put it towards entertainment at the amphitheater. And I'm talking a higher level. And I'm not talking in connection with Kingsville Folk Fest. I'm talking about standing on our own, pushing our amphitheater as the entertainment hub, if you will, in Essex County, and forget all the other stuff. There's no point in competing on the culinary. That's my take. That's how I'm feeling. Someone would have to really work to convince me. And like I said, and Tim knows, at the beginning, I was arguing with him of why we need to keep it. I'm just not, no one is giving me the right words to make me feel that we need to continue down what I see as not a slippery slope, but no one has convinced me that they're going to turn this thing around and make it better than we tried to do. And I'm welcome to hear my colleagues' thoughts as well.
You're not going to get an argument from admin. I can tell you that much to start. There's 50-50 on it, so that's an okay conversation to have. Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship. I think part of the success of the Hogs for Hospice is they got everybody to buy in. The different charities, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the Kinsmen, getting them all to partake, because we all know when you have a good opportunity, this community comes out to support the right kind of charity and function. They come out. They really, they give from their heart. And I've just experienced this over the past weekend. And I think that's it, is by having everybody buy into whatever we're going to do, instead of just trying to stand alone. That was just my thoughts, is trying to get some of them involved, and that way they have an opportunity as well to generate from that over a weekend with entertainment or anything, and you'd have more people wanting to come down to support them. The volunteers will come down to support, and you might get more out of it. Just my thoughts.